Carry on, take your seats.
Good afternoon, 1070. How are we all doing today? Outstanding, Tom! Good to hear. Well, today we have a very special treat. We have a guest speaker, Ms. Caroline Garrett. Some facts about her. She was a manager of a Fortune 500 company before she got a pilot's license, license, great HMS rating, and to raise awareness and donations for ALS, she flew around the world 3 times. Once in 2003, once in 2008, and once in 2011. And in her 2008 venture, she actually had the world record. That's 8.5 days. Very impressive. So without further ado, I present our guest speaker, Ms. Caroline Garrett. Let's give her a warm.
Wow, thank you very much. What an amazing reception. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I'm looking forward to telling you about my 3 flights around the world. Because there were so many people here, it's probably best to keep questions until the end. However, if you have a really burning question that can't wait till the end, do feel free to raise your hand and ask that burning question, because if it's burning enough for you, it will be for other cadets as well. And this isn't working, so I'm going to take it off. And turn it off. Okay, can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, 3 flights around the world, all for ALS. ALS is Lou Gehrig's disease. Most of you have heard about it because of the Ice Bucket Challenge. Unfortunately, my mother died of Lou Gehrig's disease in 2002. I've been flying around the world 3 times and making presentations, writing books, and raising donations for ALS since that time. I'll be telling you a little bit about ALS and a lot about flying around the world.
This flight was done in Caroline's Mooney, a J-Mo with a 200 horsepower Lycoming engine sipping less than 8 gallons per hour of fuel. That's over 20 miles per gallon.
Okay, so there's my Mooney. How many of you have flown in a Mooney? 1. Very good. 3. 4? Okay, it's a standard, a normal general aviation 4-seater plane. 4 seats that's still smaller than a car. Retractable undercarriage, single engine, 200 horsepower Lycoming engine, extra tanks in the wings so I could carry 100 gallons at any time. Very, very efficient plane, one of the most efficient planes. So, my mother died in 2002. I started planning my flight around the world in 2003, actually for other reasons, and then I decided to turn it into a charity flight. If I was going to do this, I might as well try and get something good out of it, so I turned it into a charity flight. Now, I'd never flown around the world before. I didn't know how to plan one of these things, so I started researching it on the internet, looking into things, figuring out the route that I wanted to go, the countries I wanted to fly in, where to find avgas. Not all airports have avgas, so I had to find that. Permits. Many countries in between Australia and Europe require overflight permits and landing permits. I had to figure out how to do that. The longest distance in the world with no islands in between, from the coast of California to Hawaii, over 2,000 nautical miles. I had to be able to do that distance, have that endurance. So I had to do all this planning. This is the tanking system. Is there any way of just trying out the first bank of lights to see this a little better? No? Yes. A little better, easier to see the picture. So the first tanking system that I had, we removed the 2 rear seats, and this is a standard 55-gallon drum in place of the rear seats. Replaced the right seat with a 17-gallon drum. Again, 100 in the wings, so that gave me enough gas to be able to get that long distance across to Hawaii. But you can see also there's plenty of room to spread out. Once I have everything in the cockpit, this is the 55-gallon drum. I sat in the left seat here. On top of the 55-gallon drum is a non-skid surface, and then a life raft and a ditch bag. In the highly unlikely event of a ditching, I have the life raft and the ditch bag, food, water, handheld radios, signaling devices, everything that I need in the highly unlikely event of a ditching. On top of the right tank, I had a board. This is back in 2003. We only had websites. So I was keeping detailed information both on the flight and the countries I was visiting, and then when I landed I would upload it to the website so family and friends could read what had happened and how everything was going and then know that I was still safe. On the other side here I had an HF radio. The long distances across the oceans, the only way of communication is HF, high frequency radio. and a 100-foot trailing antenna. Every hour you make a position report, your latitudes and longitudes where you are at that point, the calculated latitudes and longitudes where you will be 1 hour from then, and then 2 hours from then. And that repeats every hour, and then charts on top. So when I got back to the United States, I actually visited my dad in Virginia, and a TV crew, a news crew, came up from Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and interviewed me, and they put a short segment on the news and gave me video of that segment. So I'll play that really quickly, so you'll get a summary of the 2003 flight, and then we'll move on to the 2008 and 2011 flight.
Last day of February was the first day of the trip out of her hometown of Orlando to California. Then it was over the Pacific Ocean, the ghost of Amelia Earhart and her tailwind.
I told very few people until I was across the Pacific. The whole Amelia thing.
Her route took her within 100 miles of Howland Island, where Earhart is thought to have vanished. Gary encountered few mechanical problems.
I went through 4 starters.
There was a meteorological problem en route to New Zealand.
I was between 2 cyclones, and so I had rain pounding on the cockpit for 5 hours.
Flying at 175 miles an hour, she buzzed Australia's Outback, visiting Ayers Rock, India's Taj Mahal, Africa's Victoria Falls, England's White Cliffs of Dover, Greenland's icebergs, to Canada, then south to Clarksville, Virginia, to visit her dad a couple of weeks. Carol Ann Garrett's flight around the world ended Sunday back home in Orlando, a 40,000-mile flight through 25 countries.
So I returned back to Florida, and EAA chapters, flying clubs, and other groups, Rotary and other civic groups, asked me to start giving presentations about my flight. They hadn't heard of too many people flying around the world. They certainly didn't know anybody that had flown around in a small single-engine plane. So I started making these presentations, and they would go back home and read the website, which, as I said, is very detailed, and then they'd get back to me and say, "Oh, you have to turn this website into a book." And I would say, "Oh, no, I don't." You can see that they went out. I thought, well, if some good could come of this, I'll write a book, and then I'll make presentations, sell the book, and all the money will go to ALS. So between 2004 and 2007, I traveled around the U.S. every summer, making presentations to flying groups and civic groups, and raising funds for ALS. And I was able to raise over $80,000 for ALS research, which I thought was pretty good. And then this little idea crept into my brain, and I couldn't get rid of it. And it said, well, maybe if you tried to set a world record, you could make even more money for ALS. So I looked into it, and I found out that the old world record was 54.6 miles an hour. It had been set in a Bonanza in 1988, so 20 years earlier. And setting the average speed in a world record, you determine your route, and then the clock starts ticking when you take off, and it keeps ticking all the time you're flying, all the time you're on the ground, flying on the ground in hotels. So it keeps ticking when you're on the ground until you land at that first airport again. So the ground time is critical. So I pulled out some charts and measured distances and figured out how far I could go in between stops, and I thought, yeah, I think I can beat this record. So I set about it seriously, gave it a title, Dash for a Cure. We got the word out in the media. I chose a co-pilot, a woman co-pilot, so that this would hopefully be a woman's success story. And then started doing the serious planning. As I said, the planning took 18 months. This is going to be a westbound flight around the world, but when you're going to do a flight around the world in 7 to 8 days, that's 1 week. What week in the year out of 52 weeks do you pick? I didn't know, so I talked to weather people. And they said in the equatorial region of the world, the weather is the most benign in December. Does anybody remember when the Voyager flew around the world? You guys are a little young for this. December, somebody said it back there. Yes, back in 1986, 84 or 86, it's one of those 2 years. They flew around the 3rd week of December. They got back December 24th, 9 days and 5 minutes. So we chose the 1st week of December. The other part of the planning was to do the minimum number of stops and the maximum distance per leg. Every time you stop, especially in a foreign country, you have customs, immigration, bureaucracy, all these things that are out of our control. And so the only way of keeping that to a minimum is to do the minimum number of stops. So in the planning stages, we're going to go from Orlando, I live in Florida, so Orlando International was a good start. San Diego nonstop, Hawaii, over to Guam. Guam is in the Western Pacific, still a U.S. territory, no customs and immigration. Then we start different continents, countries, airspace requirements, permit requirements, things start getting a little bit more difficult. The next stop was Thailand, mainly because I have a Mooney pilot friend who lives in Thailand. He could help me with that area of the world. Then over India to Salalah, Oman. Another Mooney pilot friend had stopped there. Small airport, small town, quick in and out with customs and immigration. Then Djibouti on the east coast of Africa. I'd stopped there in 2003. Not the best place in the world, but I knew it had avgas and hotels, so I'd be okay. I had trouble finding a stopping place in Central Africa, talked to pilots that flew in that area of the world, and finally chose Bamako, Mali. Mali used to be a tourist-friendly country. You know where Timbuktu is? Timbuktu is in Mali. Bamako is the capital. Lots of people used to visit Timbuktu, very historical place. So the customs and immigration were pretty easy. So I chose Mali. I don't want to go there now. This country's in a civil war, not the best place to stop. But that was the chosen stop. Then the Cape Verde Islands off the west coast of Africa, then non-stop back to Orlando. So what kind of distances are we looking at? Hawaii to Guam, 3,200 nautical miles. Djibouti to Mali, 3,200 nautical miles. Cape Verde back to Orlando, almost 3,300 nautical miles. I don't know how many of you pilot small aircraft, but most small general aviation aircraft fly 700 to 1,000 nautical miles. So this is 3 to 5 times further than most general aviation aircraft. So how am I going to be able to make these different distances? We're going to have 195 gallons, which puts me at 15% over gross, officially inspected and signed off by the FAA. Everything was done above boards here. Ever since I had my Mooney, since 2000, I always kept all the numbers on the gas consumption. I had to extrapolate a little bit. In 2003, I'd run at 10% over gross, but I never run at 15% over gross, so I had to extrapolate a little bit. When I'm running very heavy, I had higher power settings. As I backed off, as I dropped weight from using the gas, I could back off on the power settings and run leaner. So I was going to use 7.9 gallons for the first half, drop down to 7.3 gallons an hour as I backed off on the power settings. And then that gave me a total of 26 hours endurance, and at the speeds I was going to fly, that gives me 3,500 nautical miles distance, no wind, no reserve. So, I don't know what you think about that, but for me, 3,500 nautical miles is a little bit too close to 3,300 nautical miles. So the first decision is, you never go with a headwind. Just can't do these 3 long legs with a headwind. Then we look at the winds around the world. There are trade winds in this area of the world all around that band between the tropical Cancer and the equator. We tend to see trade winds. These wind charts are available on the internet at 5,000, 10,000, 18,000 feet. I spent many hours looking at these trade winds. This is just from Africa to Florida, but you can see these wind barbs are showing 15, 20, 25 knots. And as I said, I watched them for many hours, many days, very consistent across the Pacific, across India, across Africa. In this band of the world, very consistent trade winds. So you can see we're counting on these trade winds. If you have 20 knots on the tail for 20 hours, that's a huge push to increase the distance we can fly and decrease the risk. So we're counting on these trade winds to push us around the world. Okay, so what did it look like in the cockpit? 2 seats, 2 women pilots up front, 2 60-gallon containers. Remember all the spare space I had in 2003? No more spare space. We had room for a little bit of water up here. We used the bladders from a Camelback, sat up there, 2 liters of water each. A few charts sat up there. I didn't have a life raft. Winslow Life Raft Company made a small rescue raft. It couldn't be called a life raft because it didn't meet the requirements, but it fit behind the seat and under the tank. Behind the other seat, we had computers, video cameras, extra batteries, food, and things like that. The oxygen cylinder, about this long, this round, sat in front of the left seat pilot, under the left seat pilot's legs, strapped down so that it didn't roll around. The toolkit that we had just in case sat under the right seat pilot's legs, in front of the right seat. So you can see everything, because of weight and balance with all the gas behind us, everything had to be up front with us. It was a little congested. I tell people my toothbrush sat in this pocket right here. But, you know, if you want to do something like this, you know you're going to put up with a little bit of discomfort, and it's only going to be 8 days or so. We figured we could do it. Here's a picture of Carol, my co-pilot, and me. We sat in the Mooney on the ground at EAA AirVenture Oshkosh for 24 hours. Sounds like fun, huh? Started out as a media stunt because trying to set a world record, we needed to get the message out ahead of time. And we did do a lot of interviews through the Open Door TV and newspaper and radio interviews. But actually, it turned out to be a good test. We had to sit side by side in the plane for 24 hours. We had to eat what we were going to eat on a regular flight leg. We had to sleep in the plane. Of course, when we were going to do the flying on the flight legs, we were going to do 2-hour sleep shifts. Here, we could both sleep at the same time, but still, it's a straight up and down seat that doesn't lean back because the tanks are right behind us. So a little bit uncomfortable. We had to pee in the plane. So, I mean, we had to do everything we were going to do on a regular flight leg. So when we got out after 24 hours, I mean, yes, we were a little stiff and tired and sore, but we also had a boost in confidence. We'd just done the equivalent of flight leg. And so it really gave us a boost in confidence. We thought, yeah, we can really do this. Later on, we did a long test flight together. Carol lives with her Mooney in Texas. I live with my Mooney in Florida. She flew her to me. I had all the extra equipment. I had the tanks in the plane. I had the satellite phone. I had the HF radio. So we did a long flight together so that she could practice with all the equipment so that when we were ready to go, she was as capable with it as I was. We also had a support team, 3 people, 1 in the Far East, 1 in Europe who covered Africa, and 1 in the US that had experience in these areas of the world and long distance flying. And they were our support team. They could call us on the satellite phone if we needed anything, we could call them. Okay, that's a very quick summary. 18 months, I did a whole lot more preparation because when you're setting out on an 8.5-day world record flight, everything has to be nailed down before you move. But that's a quick summary of what we did. December 2nd, 2008, 8:32 p.m., we departed from Orlando International Airport, flew through the night, non-stop, arrived at San Diego, 10:20 a.m. Pacific time, landed, gassed up, got some more food, headed back into the air, took off at noon, but we did do a TV interview there, because anytime we could, we did a TV interview to get the message across about ALS. Noon, we took off, headed across the Pacific to Lihue, Hawaii, arrived at 2:30 a.m. Pacific time. Another decision we made ahead of time, every night landing was preceded by an instrument approach. We didn't want any illusions, anything giving us wrong guidance, so Carol sitting in the left seat coming in on the ILS 35 approach. We landed, we had a ground team on the ground, ready and waiting for us. We taxied to the ramp, shut down, got out. Well, the first thing they did was give us a Hawaiian late, which was really nice. Whisked us off to the hotel. We were exhausted. 35 hours of flying. We'd been up the day before departure. So they got us straight to the hotel. And we got a solid 4 hours sleep. Got up, had a light breakfast. Actually, this is where I called my friend Chip. Chip was a pilot in Indiana. He'd had ALS at this stage for 5 years. I don't know how much you know about ALS, but it's a neurodegenerative disease. The neurons quit firing, the muscles quit working. Typically, it starts at the extremities, so your foot doesn't work or your hands, fingers quit working. It works its way in until you die of respiratory failure, once you go onto a respirator. Chip had it for 5 years. He's immobile in bed. He can't move a thing. But your brain works 100% the whole time. He knows everything that's going on. He knew about my 2003 flight. He knew about the preparation for this flight. He knows that I'm underway. So I told him that I would call him from somewhere in the world. Of course, I worked it out with his wife, Jan, that I would call him from Hawaii, so she knew when I would call. I told him about the first 2 legs, and he wished us well on the rest of the journey. We had time for photo ops in Lihue at the airport. They'd already raised some funds for ALS research. We gassed up. We're almost ready to go again. I called the weather guy. Universal Weather from Houston had volunteered to support our weather for this flight. And there's only one airway straight from Hawaii to Guam, so I flight planned that airway. I talked to Dave that morning. There was a small low pressure system to the north of Hawaii. The forecast for the first 1,000 nautical miles was headwinds. There is no way of doing this flight leg with headwinds. So I kept Dave on the phone. I got latitudes and longitudes that he had forecast very slight tailwinds and then stronger and stronger tailwinds. So I refiled the flight plan. We took off at noon. This is the exact track that we followed. When the back tanks ran dry of gas, we switched to the main tank so the engine kept running. That's when we did our calculations. At this point, we had a calculated 2.5 hours remaining when we got to Guam. This was a go situation. We did not have to deviate to the Marshall Islands. This is the only possibility in the middle of the Pacific, and you have to make that decision very early. This was a go situation. We continued flying. The total leg was 23 hours. We arrived early morning over Guam, where was the only rainstorm in the Pacific. Right over the island of Guam. But it wasn't that bad. We could do a visual arrival. We landed. We had another ground crew, Chuck. We taxied to Chuck's hangar, shut down the hangar. He pulled us in, kept us dry, whisked us off the hotel. Got another 4 hours sleep, light lunch, came back to the airport, gassed up. The TV cameras came from Guam TV to interview us. They wanted to know what this little plane was doing on Guam. So we did an interview with them.
Terminal disease, if you're diagnosed with it, you are going to die with it. There is no known cause, no cure, and not enough people working on it. My mother died from it, Carol has a cousin with it, and we're making an event so that people pay attention to us so that we can spread the word.
So we got the word out in Guam while we were doing this flight. You can also see we've changed uniform. Before we're wearing our nice comfortable flight suits. Now we're heading internationally. Our last U.S. stop, we're heading internationally. When you land internationally and you're working your way through customs immigration at the terminal, it really facilitates things to look like a pilot, which in this case means looking like an airline pilot. So from now on, white shirt, lots of stripes on the shoulder, black tie, black pants. We're looking like airline pilots from now on. So we left Guam that afternoon, headed straight west over Manila, over the Philippines, over the South China Sea, Vietnam, Cambodia to Chiang Mai. Another 20-hour leg. We landed again early morning. You can see our ground team, Yui and Yui, how much paperwork they have. They marched us through customs, through immigration. They got us to the hotel within 30 minutes of landing. Unbelievable. We had to muddle through this on our own. It would have taken a couple of hours. So great time savings there. We got some sleep, headed back to the airport. The mechanics from Siam General Aviation showed up. This was our planned maintenance stop. We had 75 hours on the engine since we departed Orlando International. So we had planned to have them come out. We changed the oil filter, cleaned the air filter, cleaned and rotated the spark plugs, and rechecked the magneto timing. Everything was working perfectly. Held up, gassed up, ready to go again. 20.4 hours to get there, 8 hours on the ground, including the maintenance stop, and we're on our way again. Okay, here in Chiang Mai, we're about halfway around the world. And as you've heard, things have gone pretty much like clockwork. We have one stop coming up in the Middle East, 3 stops in Africa. But these stops that are coming up, we don't have people on the ground that know we're coming. Unfortunately, I don't know people everywhere in the world. So in the second half of the world, we're kind of on our own. We still have a support team calling the airports, letting them know we're coming. But we don't have ground people knowing, ready to help us out as soon as we get there. So we left mid-afternoon, headed out over the Bay of Bengal, over India at night, arrived at Salalah, Oman, early morning. Now they don't have avgas. I'd already ordered the 55-gallon drum ahead of time. I had confirmation that it had been delivered. Unfortunately, when we got there, it turned out to be a holiday. It couldn't be delivered to the airport, so it took quite a few hours to finally get it. We did get the 55-gallon drum. I knew we were going to be siphoning out of the 55-gallon drum. At home in my hangar, I practiced siphoning. I knew it would only take 30 minutes to siphon 55 gallons out of the drum into my tanks. I brought the hose with us, so we're good to go again. 3.4 hours on the ground, a little bit longer than planned, but we got out of Salalah, headed down the Gulf of Aden to Djibouti. Late start, late arrival. We got to Djibouti at dusk. The support team had been calling the airport, letting them know we were coming. As soon as we shut down on the ramp, a little tractor and trailer with 3 55-gallon drums came straight up to us. Normally you have to go into the office and beg and plead, so this was, again, a time savings. 2 55-gallon drums, each into the back tanks, 1 into the wings, and we headed off to the hotel. We were exhausted again. We've been up for 35 hours. After the last short hotel break, we were exhausted. We absolutely needed a full night's sleep. And to tell the truth, we were a little worried about flying across Africa, so it felt great the next morning to wake up, feel refreshed, feel good again. We headed to the airport, got to the airport at 7 a.m., took off at 10 to 8, 50 minutes, that was very good. Left Djibouti, flew over Ethiopia, over Sudan. We were chit-chatting in the cockpit, we're really feeling good. Everything's going great until 10 hours and 8 minutes into the flight. All of a sudden, the engine starts coughing. The back tanks had run dry. We hit the boost pump, changed the valve, went on to the wing tanks. The engine keeps going. We said, what went wrong? Normally, the back tanks last for 14 hours. They've gone dry 4 hours ahead of time. It would appear we were shorted 30 gallons out of Djibouti. The back tanks don't have any sight gauges on them, so there's no way of knowing how much is in there. I was tired. I never went back to inspect the 55-gallon drums. So the gas must have remained in the 55-gallon drums. So we did our calculations. We can no longer make our destination of Bamako Mountain. So we call the ground crew, we tell them what's happened. We say, we're going to our alternate Niamey, Niger. We always have an alternate just in case things happen. That's our alternate Niamey, Niger. We're bummed, but we keep flying. 2 hours later, the ground crew calls us back on the satellite phone. They've been in touch with the airport in Niamey, Niger, who informed them that they had just run out of avgas. Now we're really bummed. We said, okay, we're landing at Niamey. It's a midnight arrival. We have all the charts. The safest thing to do is to land at Niamey. See if they can get any high-octane car gas. My agent will run on high-octane car gas. That was plan C. Fleming is in charge of this area. He's a Mooney pilot, lives in Europe. He'd flown in this area of Africa. He runs into his basement, pulls out all his old paperwork, starts making phone calls. He finds avgas in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
Say that one more time, please.
That's normally my next line. But you say that. I couldn't say that back then. Didn't know where it was. Finally found it on the charts. The problem was we had a landing permit for Niamey, Niger. We had a landing permit for Bamako, Mali. We only had an overflight permit for the country of Burkina Faso. Avgas is down there. We're not allowed to land. Bo, who lives in Denmark, got me all the permits for this flight. He had stayed in touch with the support crew. He had the same equipment. He watched us flying around for the last 4 days. He realizes the problem. He gets to work. By the end of business that day, he gets us a landing permit for Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. As we got closer, we realized we had enough avgas left. We could overfly Niamey, land in Ouagadougou. 1 a.m., we landed. Lasana did the paperwork right on the wing. Gas guys showed up, they gassed the main tanks. Carol and I pooled our US dollars, we paid off the gas guys. We're back in the air in 1 hour and 15 minutes. Absolutely the fastest turnaround of the whole trip. We left at Ouagadougou, flew right over Bamako, Mali, our intended destination over Senegal, over Dakar, 2 hours across the Atlantic Ocean to the Cape Verde Islands, our last stop. We had one more hotel stop planned, but we also knew from the support team, that there was a fast-moving cold front heading for Orlando. We said, skip the hotel rest, let's gas up, let's get out of here. That night in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean was a huge high-pressure system, fantastic tailwinds. When the back tanks ran dry after 14 hours, we did our calculations. We had a guaranteed 3 hours remaining in the tanks when we got to Orlando. We did not have to stop in the Bahamas. We could fly all the way. 23 hours later, we arrived in Orlando. The TV crews were there to capture it on film. Friends were there to welcome us home. We were exhausted but finished. As I said, we had friends there to welcome us, and it was a very successful trip. 8 days, 12 hours. Seconds for a new world record of 115.35 miles an hour. Remember the old one was 54.6? More than double the old world record. And more importantly, we wrote another book, gave more presentations and donations to ALS research of over $300,000. And there's good news for the scientists that are working on that. But, do you think I saw anything on this flight? It's a great big wide world out there. Super places to see and visit. No. Over 80 hours we're flying at night. Mostly all I saw were airports. Every once in a while a hotel bed opposite. So, who has to fly around the world again? So I did, as I said, I did presentations to raise the funds for ALS and then planned a fun, enjoyable, places in the world I'd never been before, things that I wanted to see, an 11-month flight around the world, this time eastbound, heading eastbound. And to really enjoy myself. Also, I was making presentations as I traveled. Lots of countries wanted, airports, flying clubs wanted to do a 2008 flight, so I did that as I was traveling. But April 2011, I headed up the east coast of Florida, up the east coast of the U.S. in Florida. It's warm by April. By the time I got to St. John's, Newfoundland, freezing rain, 0 degrees Celsius, coldest spot I had the whole time. But the weather gave us a break. We were out of there the next day, across 8.5 hours across the Atlantic to the Azores. I'd never been to the Azores before, wanted to visit these small volcanic islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Great stopping point for sailors as they're going across the Atlantic or back. Not too many flat spots because they are volcanic, so most of the airports are right on the coast. No sandy beaches, all lava, volcanic rock around the edges. beautiful green, they get a fair amount of rain, so greenish islands, small farm holdings run by the Portuguese, friendly, helpful, supported people. They would do anything for us, took us into the town, drove us around, everything that we needed. This is the island of Porta, the island of Pico is down right across the other side. Went to visit there, down the chain is Santa Maria, so spent a week visiting the Azores, then headed to mainland Europe, and as I say, I zigzagged around Europe. I was born and raised in England with relatives in Ireland, so I was visiting relatives here. I lived in France for 8 years of my working time, so I visited friends here and friends in Germany. And besides that, as I said, my 2008 flight had been written up in flying magazines in Europe, but I'd never been over there. So I was invited by lots of flying clubs and air shows to come to their air shows and flying clubs and give the presentation. So a lot of other stops were those and tourist stops. I'll just give you a few statistics on flying in Europe relative to flying in the States. Our avgas right now is between $5 and $7 a gallon. In Europe, it's over $13 a gallon. When we land, I landed at Guthrie Monday afternoon. You don't have to pay anything landing at Guthrie. Every airport you land in Europe, you pay every landing. A small airport like Guthrie would be $25 to $30 every landing. A medium-sized airport is $75 to $80 every landing. I didn't go into the big airports, much more expensive. So we have a lot of freedom over here to fly, to do whatever we want. That is much more restrictive and expensive in other countries, so we're really lucky. I had to have an insurance supplement because I had an unregistered plane, so I had to be out of Europe and into Istanbul by the end of September. So I was in Germany heading to Switzerland, but the weekend that I had planned to leave, a massive cold front came through Central Europe, so I stayed put in Germany, left after the storm went through. Now I'm a flatland pilot from Florida. There's no way I'm flying in the mountains unless the weather's perfect. And so after the storm went through, beautiful blue skies, light winds, absolutely gorgeous. I flew through the valleys and over the ridges at 9,000 feet. Actually had to turn away from my airport to drop my altitude and then turn back to Samadan. The cold front had left snow on the peaks. It was gorgeous flying through Switzerland. And this is the airport I'm going into, Samadan in Switzerland. Spent a couple of days with friends hiking in the mountains, then headed the other direction out through the valleys to the lower mountains in Italy. Spent some time there giving presentations, then Slovenia, Austria, Hungary, and out to Istanbul, and the real journey starts. Most of these countries I haven't been to before, so Turkey I'd never been to before. I was interested in visiting. The Roman Empire extended all the way into Turkey. So lots of visits of the different points where the Roman Empire was, lots of Roman ruins, as well as mosques and other things specific to Turkey and the people living there. Then I left Turkey and was heading to Israel and Jordan, 2 countries on my must-see list. Now getting the permit for Israel is not like getting a flight permit for the other countries. Much more difficult. They have very few small planes flying in and landing at Israeli airports. In fact, it turned out to be more of a security clearance than just a regular flight permit. They called me multiple times, half an hour interrogation over the phone. A couple of days later, another phone call, more interrogation, until finally I got approval to land. So I landed in Haifa, and then I wasn't allowed to fly in Israel. So I used public transportation, went to Tel Aviv, went to Jerusalem, visited the Holy City. I mean, one of the areas I really wanted to see. Wonderful weekend in the Holy City, seeing the intersection of multiple religions, the Dome on the Mount of Olives. Wanted to go to Bethlehem at that time, not realizing that Bethlehem is in Palestinian territory, and I had to go through the wall that is being built. This was probably the most difficult day I had, because I just spent some time in Berlin, where the wall was torn down more than 20 years ago. And now I'm in a country where a wall is being built up. So mentally, this was the most difficult day. So I did visit Bethlehem, had a good time. When I was in Tel Aviv and Haifa, I gave 3 presentations to large flying groups. Pilots over there only have a very small land area they can fly in, but they are as bitten by the bug as we are. When they go flying for fun, for their, we call it a $100 hamburger, they fly to Cyprus for lunch and back. But they still love the presentation, they love hearing the story about it. When I got back to Haifa, a pilot asked me if I wanted to fly to Masada. And I said, wow, yes, absolutely. Masada is the lowest airport in the world, 1,240 feet below sea level. I said, but I'm not allowed to. And he said, as long as I had an Israeli pilot in the right seat, we could fly to Masada. So here we are. Here's the airport of Masada. Over here is the Dead Sea. So you can see I'm above pattern altitude. You can just see my altimeter is just below 200 feet, and I'm well above the airport. So I went over the runway, did a full pattern, and landed at Masada as the altimeter unwound to 1,240 feet below sea level. It's very, very hot, so there wasn't really a significant difference in density altitude. The Dead Sea is over here. The Fortress of Masada is on the right side, looking at it from here. So I got a full day tour of the Fortress of Masada, learned all the history and everything else fascinating, and then flew back to Haifa. Now flying, we're talking about the differences in Europe, flying in Israel, VFR, is not like flying in the States. You have to follow a line on the chart. You have reporting points that you have to report to air traffic control. So we're flying back from Masada to Haifa. We fly over the Sea of Galilee, take the left towards Haifa. We get behind a slower plane. We're not allowed to overtake the slower plane. We have to slow down. He lands in Haifa. We go into Haifa. So very restricted VFR flying in Israel. But still, as I said, they're as bitten by the bug as we are. My next stop was from Haifa to Amman, Jordan. You don't think I wasn't worried about this flight, knowing everything that's going on in those countries. But actually, it turned out to be a non-event. It was just like a handover from one approach controller in the U.S. to the next approach controller. The two countries talked to each other. They've agreed on all the rules. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. So I landed in Amman, played tourist for a while, floated in the Dead Sea, covered myself with Dead Sea mud. Actually gave a presentation up in Amman and then down in Aqaba. And when I was in Aqaba, visited Petra, the lost city built by the Nabateans. Fascinating history over there. And I was taken around by Basma. Now, Jordan, all the kids in the local area, if they want to become pilots or airline pilots, they head to Jordan. There are three aviation academies, two up in Amman, one down in Aqaba. And in these academies, they go all the way through all the licenses, all the way up to ATP, maintenance as well. So Jordan is really the country where all the kids want to become pilots. They head to Jordan. In Aqaba, there was one of the aviation academies. Basma was one of the instructors. So I got to know Basma. She took 4 days off to show me around the area. We actually flew around the area as well. When I finish one of these flights and get back to the States, I always contact the people that I've met and make sure they are okay with me using their picture and their name and picture in the book. So I got back in touch with Basma. And between the time I left Jordan and the time I got back in touch with her in the U.S., she had met and married the brother of the king of Jordan. So she's now Princess Basma. So I'm really looking forward to my next trip back to Jordan. Actually, she's back in touch with me. She's a pilot, her husband's a pilot, the king of Jordan's a pilot, their dad was a pilot. She and her husband do charity flights in Jordan. They want to fly around the world, so she's already been back in touch with me for routing and planes and things like that. So there is a good chance I'll get back to Jordan to visit them. Looking forward to that. Then headed to Egypt, wanted to see Cairo and the pyramids, the Valley of the Kings and Queens, and Luxor. Of course, you know what was going on in 2011. January was the Arab Spring. This is November 2011. I'm following the news very closely. I'm ready to skip this country. Everything was calm in November 2011. So in I went, landed at Cairo, visited the pyramids, had a great time, visited Luxor, had a great time. And then my relatives are visiting me in Kenya. I have 2 days travel, 16 hours flying to get to Djibouti in Kenya. Stopped in Djibouti for avgas, and then for the next day I'm going to join my relatives. So this is my third trip to Djibouti. I think I know how things work. I was actually running out of cash, and my sister-in-law, who's joining me in Kenya, is bringing me my next stash of cash. So I called ahead of time, I reserved my 55-gallon drum, and I asked how much it was. It was going to be $906. I saved my last money for Djibouti. Landed at Djibouti, got the 55-gallon drum, opened it up, inspected it to make sure it was full, filled the tanks, got my flashlight and inspected it to make sure that it was empty, gave him my $910. He looks through all the $100 bills, hands four back to me and says, we need newer $100 bills. They no longer accept bills with dates older than 2000. I said, but I just bought them from the States. They're really good. He said, no. His boss came over. He said, we can't accept them. The banks won't accept them. We need new $100 bills. As it turns out, the #1 counterfeited bill in the world is the US $100 bill. So all the countries are really look at the dates before they accept them. By the time I got to Indonesia, this was 2006. By that time, I had a lot of newer bills. Anyway, I'm discussing it with him over the wing. I don't have a leg to stand on. During this time, luckily, a plane had taxied next to us with a U.S. registration. I went over there, talked to the captain, explained my problem. He plans into his cockpit, comes out with 4 crisp new $100 bills, takes my old $100 bills, and I can pay off the gas guy. I'm really lucky he showed up. There is no way they were going to let me leave that round without their money. So the next day I was able to leave Djibouti, fly to Kenya, had a great 2 weeks with my relatives, but my next stop is Madagascar. I've never been to Madagascar before. The only country with lemurs, and I want to see lemurs, these monkey-like creatures with great big brown eyes, great big long tails. I want to see lemurs. But before seeing lemurs, I'm actually helping an orphanage on the southwest tip of Madagascar. There is nothing. Madagascar is already a poor country. The southern half of Madagascar is extremely poor, and down here there's absolutely nothing but scrubland. Here there are 100 orphans, and sisters and nuns take care of these orphans. A French group that I know had met them and started supporting them 14 years before. And every 3 to 4 years, the French group sends doctors, nurses, medications, and support team down to Antarctica to help these kids, and solar panels and whatever they can to help improve their environment there. And I said, well, when I met my friends, I said, well, I'm going to Madagascar, what can I do to help? So they gave me a long list: pencils, pens, papers, notebooks, chalkboards. When you run out of pencil and paper, the kids can always do their exercise on chalkboards. So I had 30 chalkboards that I met them at this airport. Offloaded all the stuff into the cars. This was a 3-day drive for the support team that was going down there. I went to another national park. 3 days later, I came back. We had a satellite phone conference. He gave me the latitudes and longitudes so I could overfly the airport. 10 o'clock the next day, I overflew the airport. I think they heard me coming and lined up all the kids in the schoolyard and spelled out my name. I thought that was so neat. So I flew over one direction and the other direction and the other direction. About 8 times I crisscrossed over the airport. And the last time I went a little bit lower and dropped my flaps and dropped my gear and waggled my wings and did everything I could. But I couldn't land there, so I went to my next destination. And we had a phone conference for 7 o'clock that evening. So I called Hubert, and he said, did you see it? Did you see it? And I said, yes, I saw the kids lined up in the schoolyard spelling out my name. He said there wasn't a dry eye in the house. All the sisters and nuns had been so moved to see me fly over. The kids had never seen an airplane before. Unbelievable. Nothing goes over that end of Madagascar. So not this December, but next December 2015, I should be part of the ground crew, so I get to go down and meet all those kids. Okay, now it's time to find lemurs. Okay. They tend to live in packs between 7 and 15, and they kind of move from one eating and sleeping area, move together to the next eating and sleeping area. These are the ring-tailed lemurs. The little ones stay on the mother's back for the first 6 months. I was there right about 5.5 months. So the little one would jump off the mother's back, walk down the limb, grab a leaf, and then eat it and come back to mom's back for the next trip. These are the brown lemurs. They're on the march to the next eating area. These are the Sikaka lemurs. They have really short forearms, so they can't walk like normal four-legged animals. So they get up on their rear legs and skip sideways. This one has a little one on the back. And then they squat down for rest, and they get up and skip. They're the only lemur like that. Short forearms, they can't walk. So they're the only one like that. All the rest walk like normal four-legged animals. But it was great to be able to see these lemurs in their natural habitat. Then I headed up to the Seychelles, and this is a stop in preparation for getting around the Indian Ocean. These aren't going to be touristy flights. These are just get somewhere. The permits are difficult. They're only good for 24 hours. Getting Avgas is difficult. Getting in and out of the countries is difficult. So this is just a matter of getting around the Indian Ocean to where I can continue my trip. It's also where I had to go through the intertropical convergence zone, where the northern and southern hemispherical weather conditions clash, and we have a lot of thunderstorms. I was watching it every day. I was watching models for how it was going to move. And I only had a 24-hour permit to get to Muscat, Oman from the Seychelles. Had this been the weather the day I was going, we would have gone. Luckily, night I was flying with widely scattered thunderstorms. It was still the worst crossing I'd ever had, most difficult crossing I'd ever had. But I made it to Muscat, across India to Thailand, and then to Cambodia, visited the Angkor Wat temples. Then I had a 7-hour flight across the Gulf of Thailand down to Kuala Lumpur. And actually, an Air Malaysia pilot, remember this is quite a few years ago, 2011, an Air Malaysia pilot had invited me to Kuala Lumpur to go to his EAA chapter, make presentations, and he said when I arrived there, he already had a permit for us to fly around the Twin Towers in the middle of Kuala Lumpur. I said, okay, we'll see what happens, make sure the weather's okay when we get there. When I arrived, I was not too happy because I had had a gear failure. So I was going to skip the Twin Towers, and then I said, you know, this opportunity doesn't come all the time, so I made sure everything was safe and said, okay, let's meet in the air, which we did, and he guided me around the Twin Towers. He was on the outside with the photographer in his plane, went around the Twin Towers. I'm diagnosing the problem, trying to figure out what it was. After the first time around, I found the circuit breaker that had popped, made sure the gear's in the down position, hit the circuit breaker, and the gear came down. Went around the towers one more time, landed. Of course, he had a lot of social obligations planned, presentations, meeting the Director General of Civil Aviation. It was the 100th anniversary of flight in Malaysia, so they're making a big deal out of this, interviews, TV, newspaper. All I wanted to do was get under the plane and diagnose the problem. I was calling my mechanic in Florida. There was a 12-hour time difference with Florida. The Moody gear specialist was in California. There was a 9-hour time difference with California. And it was December 29th, and everybody wanted to go home on vacation. But I did everything they told me to do under the plane, pulling the parts out. We finally diagnosed it, and I couldn't solve it in Kuala Lumpur, but I could have the parts and the tools to solve it in Perth. So I had to fly with the gear down from Kuala Lumpur to Bali to Port Edmonds. Instead of my normal 140 knots speed, I was doing 100 knots. Instead of less than 8 gallons an hour, I'm using more than 10 gallons an hour. Torturously slow trips. But I made it. I got to Perth. The first thing I did after landing was check with the mechanics. They had the tools that I needed. And within 2 days, I was ready to go again. Okay, Australia. It's about the same land mass as the United States, only we have 350 million people. They have 22 million people. Lots of open area. My first flight, 5 hours in Moody to Forest, Australia. This is Forest, Australia. People driving from Forest, Australia to Perth for 2.5 days. I landed in Forest. There are 3 bungalows and 2 people living there. They are there to take care of pilots flying across Australia. That's all they do. Give them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Don't stay there more than 1 night. There is nothing to do there. So there's a museum. It's a meteorological museum. It takes 5 minutes to see everything that's there. So we left the next day, headed to the Bunda Cliffs. These are the longest cliffs in the world, 60 miles long, 300 feet high, representing 50 million years of the Earth's existence. Beautiful flying along the Bunda Cliffs. See where the cars drive across Australia? You don't get to see it. So flying along the Bunda Cliffs. Went up to Ayers Rock, down to Cooper Pedy. This is Cooper Pedy, the opal capital of the world. These are all piles of dirt next to holes. When they mine for opal, they drill a hole 3 feet in diameter, 90 feet down, put all the dirt on the side of the hole. They send out an inspector. If they find opals, they excavate. If they don't, they move over, drill another hole 3 feet in diameter, 90 feet down, put all the dirt on the side of the hole. They never fill in the holes. So these are all mining areas, just piles of dirt next to holes. You're not allowed in the mining area at night. They have lost people down those holes. The other interesting thing about Cooper Pedy is it's really, really hot there, 130, 140 degrees. The people live underground. In the old days, they used pickaxes and shovels and dug caves underground. Now they have machines that carve into the hillsides. I went into one church, about this big, only 2 stories, all underground. The air is piped in from above. It's a little claustrophobic, no windows or anything. But churches like that, I stayed in a hotel, an underground hotel. The houses have living room, dining room, kitchen, air piped in, stays a constant 74 to 78 degrees all year round. Interesting, fascinating. As Cooper Pedy went to Kangaroo Island, that's about the most natural spot in Australia. Unfortunately, the rest of Australia has been a little bit destroyed. Here, natural vegetation, koala bears, kangaroo Island. Visited other spots and then headed to Byron Bay, Byron Bay. I actually stopped in Byron Bay in 2003. I took Taylor for her first Young Eagle flight. She loved it. She started taking flying lessons. Unfortunately, didn't finish her license because of university and other things. But when she heard I was coming back, she sent me an email. Can I fly to New Zealand with you? So I think she's the only student pilot with a long over-water cross-country in her log book. 2.5 hours to Lord Howe Island, overnight to Lord Howe Island, and 6.5 hours to New Zealand. She flew, she did great, she wasn't worried about the overwater navigation, so we had a great time. Now, I can't say enough good things about New Zealand. Absolutely brilliant for tourists, for aviation people, for restorers, World War I planes, World War II planes. Anybody know what this one is? Mosquito. This was the stage it was being restored in February 2012. It was test flown in September 2012. It's back here in the States in North Carolina. It was funded by a U.S. person. Interesting part of the backside of the hangar, there's another fuselage and 2 more wings. So if you want your own Mosquito, they are ready to rebuild another one. Any pictures? Anyway, more museums with flying World War I planes, flying World War II planes on the South Island. There's another hangar restoring tiger moths, restoring beach stagger wings. Just phenomenal aviation in New Zealand. Absolutely amazing. In the South Island, I parked my Mooney on the Rampant Monica. I flew a local Cessna 172, 180 horsepower, because I was landing on backcountry sheep station farm strips. I was landing on beaches. I was flying around Mount Cook, going up Milford Sound. Absolutely amazing flying and touristy things to do in New Zealand. Beautiful, beautiful country. Okay, now if I want to get home, I have to cross the Pacific Ocean one more time. And these are just long over-water legs. So from the North Island of New Zealand to Tonga is 7 hours, American Samoa is 4 hours, Christmas Island is 10.5 hours, Hawaii is 8 hours, then back to California is 15.2 hours, and you stop back home. Another fantastic world flight, another book, more presentations, up to $412,000 for ALS research, and the doctors, the scientists are finally, they've got energy, they've got vitality, they really think they're getting close to a treatment. Drugs have been in clinical trials for about 3 years now. Unfortunately, they haven't had a successful clinical trial, but they're getting much closer. They feel that within 5 to 10 years, there should be a treatment for this terminal disease, which is great news. So, I love flying around the world. I come back more positive person every time. We have lots of negative news, reading the newspapers, watching TV, a lot of negative news, but every time I'm traveling in the countries, the people I visit, I meet great people, have a great time, and come back a more positive person. So I'm happy to be here and share my stories with you, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes?
What were your favorite and least favorite stops in 2011 trip?
Favorite and least favorite in this trip? We're all three.
The one where you stopped in one places.
Oh, this one. Okay, these two I stopped on one. This was 7 months, this was 11 months. Favorite and least favorite places? Well, you might guess my favorite was New Zealand. Yes. Least favorite, probably Ethiopia on this trip. They were the only time I had a negative statement about a woman pilot was in Ethiopia. And they were negative. They feel that Ethiopians are the original humans and the best race, the best people. And they were pretty negative to tourists. So I would say Ethiopia. Any other questions? Yes?
I can imagine this trip is not cheap. How did you do funding for this trip?
Cheapest, the trips weren't cheap. How did I fund them? I worked for 30 years. I was a saver. I always saved all my money. I invested in the stock market at the right time, so it also happened to double and triple my money, all my savings. But again, I did not spend on anything. But they may not be as expensive as you think. This one, total cost was $25,000. Now, Mooney is extremely economical. Other pilots at the same time were spending $60,000 to $70,000. But this, for me, was $25,000. This one was $20,000. This one I quit counting after $50,000. Gas costs skyrocketed. The dollar was weak, the euro was strong, the exchange rate was unfavorable. I knew it was going to be expensive. I almost canceled, but then I would never have done it if I canceled. So I went ahead with it. I had a fantastic time. I'm glad I did it, but it was pretty expensive. Yes?
Are you planning another trip around the world?
another trip around the world. I do have a trip planned around the poles, which will be another world record, but it's very dangerous because Antarctica is very dangerous to fly over. My category plane does not have a world record, so anything I do would be a world record if I was successful. Many planes have not been successful. It is very dangerous. But also I was in Russia in May and met some fantastic Russian pilots. I know we have a lot of problems with the politics, but the people were wonderful. And so I have a desire to fly around the northern hemisphere with a major concentration in Russia, 6 weeks, 16 stops. I have a female Russian pilot already lined up to fly with me because of the language problem and communication. I would stop at, play a tourist at every stop and talk to schools at every stop, and hopefully take girls flying at every stop. Because the Russians tended to be, even when I was there, very male-dominated. I got that impression the whole time. Although the women have done great things in the past. They have women cosmonauts before we had women astronauts. They had women pilots, the night witches in World War II against the Germans. Women pilots have done great things in Russia. So I'd like to get that message spread among the girls and then take some of them flying in 16 stops. And then come back to Alaska and back home. So that was planned for 2016, but with the tensions right now, and I do need a permit to get through Russia, to fly through Russia, I might have to put it off to 17 or 18. But that's probably the next flight that I will. Yes?
Two quick questions for you. First, have you made it out to Chino, California?
Yes, I have.
Eaten float dead?
I didn't eat there, no, but I have been there. My brother was right next door, so I stopped there every year in Rocket Creek.
Great museum.
Yes.
Great flying. Secondly, what would you have to offer for those wanting to set records and create new foundations in aviation?
Oh, okay. The first question I didn't make it loud enough for everybody. Was have I been to Chino, California? Because it's a great museum and a great airport. My brother happens to live right next door, so I stop there every year. So yes, I've been to Chino. The second one, any recommendations for people wanting to set world records in aviation? What was the second part of that question?
Set records or new foundations in aviation.
Or new foundations in aviation. I've never been asked that question before. You got to have a really strong desire to do it. I mean, 18 months of my life full-time was in planning for an 8.5-day flight. So you've got to want to do it. Then, I mean, it's pretty much what the Boy Scouts say and other people say in industry is the better the planning, the better the execution. Our flight around the world, yeah, we had a little bit of hiccup in Africa, but we had the support team to get us through that, and the planning really paid off. So whatever you're going to do is plan it in detail. And with a desire, strong desire to do it, and good planning, good support team, you can do it. So what's your world record going to be?
Honestly, my dream scare me, but largest aviation collection by the time I'm 50.
Great. That's a good one. Good luck. Yes.
Chief, man, you mentioned something about an oxygen tank in the front seat with you on your second trip. Did you use that to fly higher to save fuel?
Did I use the oxygen to fly higher to save fuel? Actually, no. The best fuel economy in my plane is between 6,000 and 8,000 feet, so I would always try to fly between 6,000 and 8,000. When airspace requirements or country or the airways or the country required me to fly at 10, 12, 14, 16, I would always fly or file on the flight plan what the airway required. And then I try and find a controller and get him or her to let us fly lower because that was more economical. We had the oxygen in case, well, over the Rockies, I mean, we were at 12,000. I knew some of the airways were going to be higher. We'd have to be on oxygen 14, 16,000 feet. And at night, the flying pilot always stayed on oxygen. So even if we were lower and it wasn't required, to make sure that we were okay 100%, we had a pulse oximeter and the flying pilot stayed on oxygen. The sleeping pilot didn't need to. That's why we had our oxygen.
Unfortunately, I think that's all the time we have. So thank you again for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. happy to sign before. Thank you very much.
And at this time, would you please take out your cell phones?
What?
We're gonna break the wave a little bit. Alright, so at Dynasty 70, we have a mass texting system. This is the system we use to get out information very quickly and very rapidly. So for example, if a storm starts coming in Wednesday afternoon and we need to move PT to the Colvin, instead of sending out a mass email and hoping everyone reads it beforehand, we can just send out a text saying, hey, PT's at the Colvin. And everyone will get it, and it's good. So as you can see, you're going to text a keyword to the number 84483. And your keyword is based on your AS class. So if you're 100, you'll text GO, capital G-O, 100, 100. AS 200 is GO 200, etc., etc. So at this time, please text your keyword to 84483. Yes?
You could have an option for 250, or would you rather us?
Please subscribe to both. So you can subscribe to multiple groups. So just set GO 100 and GO 200. Separately. When you have completed this, please put away your cell phone and just look up, make sure it's okay. And when everyone's done with that, we're going to head over to the library for our open ranks inspection. Charlie Flight, you'll leave first, since you have to go for assistance, followed by Bravo Flight, then Alpha Flight. So once everyone's done, flight commanders, please take the early flight. Yes, Minister.
Are we taking our stuff with us?
Yes. Please take your stuff with us because you will not be coming back. Flight commanders, take control of your flights here afterwards and then.
Haste! Count. Huff! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count. Huff! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Left. Haste!
I need you to measure me up so I can be in the spot.
Count. Huff! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count. Huff! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Left. Haste! Parade. Haste!
Who is designated to be watching the backpack?
Count. 1, 2, 3, 4,
5, 6, 7, 8.
Count. 1, 2, 3, 4,
5, 6, 7,
8. Left. Pace. Parade. Pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Left. Peace. Parade. Parade. Hiss.
Remember that goal we set, bro. Fly 50 gigs as a flight or less, or either per person. So be thinking through that warrior knowledge right now. Have a good time. Whenever you got this. And don't lock your knees because we'll be staying in position attention for a while. But your element leader will put you at parade rest after your element has been inspected or while the element is running. Does anyone have any last minute questions? Lieutenant McLaughlin?
Yeah, we didn't exactly do a call the second element to attack.
Lieutenant McLaughlin, when the first element is being inspected, I will put the second and third elements at parade rest. And after the inspector turns the corner in front of the first element, you'll put the second element to attention. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. Yeah. 2, half step back. 3, 1 step back. 4, 1 step back. 5, 1 step back. 5, half step forward. 6, half step back. 2, 1 step back.
5, half step back. 6, half step back.
Half step back. 2, half step back.
Right up, hunt!
3, half step back.
Cadet Merrill, fly for inspection.
Half step forward. 4, half step forward. 5, step forward. 5, quarter step back.
Good evening, Cadet Merrill!
Third element, parade, yes.
Show me your socks, please. What is the honor code?
Cadet Merrill, the honor code is as follows. We will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate those among us who do. Correction, please, Cadet Merrill. Anyone among us who do.
Good evening, Cadet Merrill. Letters for ranks or just mark down what those discrepancies are on letters for. Yes, sir. Sound good? Yes, sir. Accompanying on the inspection.
Let's get a tab.
Second and third elements, parade. Hiss!
U.S. insignia here. It's the period mark is not grounded to the line there, so it's going to be 1 gig there. When was the last time you shined your shoes?
I was not aware they needed to be shinier until today. Because they're not shined.
Okay, so that's 1 gig for shoes for Malay. It's Cadet Parks. No, it's Cadet Smith.
Sir, I don't have any.
Third element, parade, yes!
Cadet Merrill, the first article of code of conduct is as follows. I'm an American fighting in the forces of a government, country, and way of life. I'm committed to my life for their defense.
Cadet Robinson, sir.
When's the last time you shaved?
Today, sir.
Today. All right. What is the honor code?
We should not lie, steal, nor cheat, nor tolerate anyone among us who does, sir.
Cadet Somali said. Alex, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Got a few little stubbles, so take a look at that and give you a chance. When was the last time you shined your shoes? 13 degrees, sir. What's your name? Magnus. Magnus, that's right. That's right. So I thought it sounded like Magnus earlier this week. Interesting. So how you doing today? Outstanding, sir. Okay, excellent. Very good. You have your shoes laced correctly. I like to see that. Gig line looks good. Did you shave this morning?
Yeah, so 900.
Okay. Outstanding.
Good evening. Good evening, Cassandra. How are you doing?
We're ready. Yes. First element, 10 cut.
Yeah. No, sorry. It was for cover and for his rings.
Even pit round. First up, parade, yes. Close race, push.
Need a chrono journal ranks just a little bit better, especially on the side through 4 shot. Killer for your boss when you start to get line. This gate line is a little bit off. Make sure you check that real quick before inspection every time, especially at filter. There's a little bit of light and stuff.
Taylor's core values are to reverse service for ourselves. Excellence.
Can you like those with your hands for me?
Don't mark this as a gig, but it's just a little bit off. So for the next all around, we're going to make sure you go ahead and just move that over. Needs to move just a little bit, okay?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding, cadet.
Second element. Hooray. Head.
Do you have a cap or something like that? Cadet Butler.
Outstanding, cadet Parker.
You just have some small hairs right here along the collar. So go ahead and Cadet Butler's got some hairs just right here along the collar and on this side as well. So make sure you get a lip roller after that.
Yes, cadet Parker.
Okay. When was the last time you shined your shoes?
This afternoon, cadet Parker.
Did you shave this morning?
Shave this afternoon, cadet Parker.
Okay. Excellent. Right U.S. insignia. It's touching, but it's tilted down. So go ahead and mark that. You go ahead and lift up your shoulder. A little bit higher. Your gun just it's off. So mark that. When was the last time you shined your shoes?
2 hours ago.
Well, 2 hours. Okay, go ahead and get a mark for that because I shine mine less than that and I'm still trying here, so that great, so go ahead and get a mark for that. You did for shoes? Yes, sir. Okay.
How are you? Top notch, cadet Parker.
Permission to touch?
Great.
Okay. That's right. So let's go ahead and put one right there. Thank you, Cadet Parker. You want to lift up your jacket for me? Permission to touch? Great.
Good afternoon, Cadet Parker.
How are you?
Outstanding, sir. How are you?
Thank you, sir. The only thing I would say is just it needs to be a little bit longer. Yes, sir. Ideally, when you want the tie to come all the way down, not going past the belt buckle, but you want it to be square. You can see the belt buckle kind of line. So you want it to be, but you don't want it to be past or really too high, because you get right in between.
Yes, sir.
And, did you take up all my advice last week?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Excellent. So the last time you shake?
This afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Good, sir.
Good. Same thing I told Kate Gervins about. Just when you're sizing up your tie, you want to make sure that comes down at least to the belt buckle, not too high, not too low, but just right in the middle. Yes, sir. Okay. I want you to uncage your eyes. Look how I'm holding my hands. Yours are kind of turned in this way a little bit. I want you to just turn them flat. So you come with, there you go. That's it. What's your name?
Cadet Staggs.
Cadet Staggs. How are you, Cadet Staggs?
I'm good.
Excellent. Again, actually, you do have a stain right here just on the front of the shirt for Cadet Staggs. Same thing I was doing the last two cadets with your tie. Again, make sure that it's being in the middle of the belt buckle. Not too low, not too high. Okay, looks good. Okay, hair touching with the ears. So go ahead and like that. This looks good. Nelson, correct? Yes, sir. How are you doing, Cadet Nelson? Good, good. That's good. Okay, you got hair touching the ears, so go ahead and mark that. shine your shoes?
The Faulkner I shined this morning.
This morning? Okay. A little bit more work.
Just
Can I
gonna
go back to your shoes? Then you want to lift up your belt.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good call.
You can go put
Good
it down.
call. I was going to tell you on that one if you did.
Like you've been moving around, so you'll be fine. All right, excellent. Go ahead and we'll do the switch here. So watch defense, and I'll look over the whole thing. Okay, what I'm gonna ask what's just kind of
Is there a loose button? Is there,
it's
Yes, sir. Okay, it's coming off, and I tried to fix it. But It's
Okay.
not well enough.
Okay. Unless you try, then just come up here with a permission to touch. Okay. Alright, on the don't dock this on the right U.S. insignia. It's parallel and touching, but you need to bring the bottom end up just a little bit. Yes, sir. Did you say this morning?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, excellent.
You've heard of dress shields before, Cadet Goldie?
What do you say?
Dress shields.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Dress shields helps for those individuals who sweat a lot, so you won't get what we're looking at in regards to your jacket. So what I've already informed Lieutenant Hill is to either you clean your jacket and see if they can get it out, or it has to be replaced because that's not serviceable.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You'll go ahead and you can probably go in the flank for both of you, company in the front, and we'll go over the results, okay? Yes, sir. So, automatically I can...
Okay, may I make a statement, sir? Captain Moffat just took my... Yeah, he just... Well, no, he took it off. And he just took it out and put it back on.
Oh, your ranks?
Yes, he just took the rank off.
Person touch.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Can you lift up your shirt so I can check your big line? Alright, it's just a little bit off to the right. Make sure you check that right before every inspection, especially during the ORI filter. The last thing you should check. Alright. Cadet Wilson. Good evening, Cadet Wilson. His hair is touching yours a little bit on the right side. Make sure you just touch it up before 11. When's the last time you shaved it? Yes, yes. Cadet Wilson, what are the core values?
Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all it is. She wanted to go.
Lights, headshot. Close ranks. Punch.
We're gonna have all the POC that we're not
Full
getting
raise.
lights
Test.
be inspected back there up against the brick wall.
Okay, Charlie,
facing the
overall,
library,
you did
and that
really
includes
well.
you as well.
I'll go and give a few tips that the inspector gave to me. One of the biggest ones was shaving. I know we all shaved this morning, or some of us just forgot to shave, but that's something that we can handle ourselves. It's not like lint or stuff where it just happens. So for the future, just make sure you shave. If you have bad facial hair and it grows fast, then bring a razor. Make sure to shave right beforehand. Just make sure with no facial hair at all, just shave right beforehand. Also, hair on the ears. That's a big one. I know I struggle with that a lot. I have to get a haircut right before the ORI basically to make sure that I don't have hair on my ears. So if you have that problem, then just make sure you know when they're coming. You can get razors that have little attachments on them to help with that. We did really good on our gig lines. There was only a few gigs for that, so that's good. That's something really easy that they can gig us on. So that's something that we did well on. For people who are in blues, POC, and 200s, the U.S. insignia was something that you saw a lot of things that had problems with them, which those are really hard to do. So just make sure you spend the time on them. They're supposed to be touching that line, the diagonal line, and completely parallel. So before the next ORI, just spend the time and actually like put them on your body and check to make sure they're parallel while the jacket's on you. Overall though, he said we did really well, so good job. In future ORIs, we will have more warrior knowledge asked, so make sure you definitely studied up on warrior knowledge in the future. But good job overall.
Caroline Garrett, obviously she did some really astonishing things in her life. The biggest takeaway that I learned from all of her flights around the world, and I know Colonel Charrington has been harping on this all the time, is proper prior planning. So from her expedition around the world in 8.5 days, she had backup plans for her backup plan for her backup plan. So, we can carry this over into our OTC. Is that if something's not, like for instance, if we're going to do this ORI and it started raining, okay, Cadet Tom would have a backup plan to go somewhere else where we could carry it out. So make sure whatever you're planning, whether it's ROTC, life in general, that you always have a backup plan. Okay? And then today, obviously, we had our first RI. You all got a little bit for the freshmen. This is your first time. Kind of got an idea of what it's about, what we're looking for. As we progress on throughout the year, we're gonna be expecting you to do better, to make sure that you have been shaving, that you have been shining your shoes, that your gig lines are correct, that you're getting those cables. So make sure that you are taking care of those issues. The flight commanders have talked to you all what you need to fix and work on. And that's all I pretty much have.
Thank you, Cadet Faulkner. Some announcements for the end of lab. This Saturday, September 13th, is the air show at Altus Air Force Base. I know it's a home game that Saturday, but if you're not going and you want to see some air power, you can go. It's free. Gates open at 0900. It's a 3-hour drive, so people will be meeting at the DET at 0600 to go. And if you want to go to that, you can start organizing right now. If you are on the org chart and have not had your picture taken by Cadet Luby, please see him after LLab. Right there, man with the camera.
The org chart, if you have a job title.
If you have a job title, you'll know you have a job title. If not, don't worry about it. And Cadet Worley, you have an announcement? Let's come up here.
All right, just reminding y'all that in late November, we got another Work Hard, Play Hard event that you guys can sign up for. It's the Route 66 Marathon, just doing a relay of 3 to 5 people. It's a great time for us to get together and just go run, because it would honestly be pretty easy, only 5 to 5.6 miles per person. So if you want more information, contact me, christopher.m.worley@okstate.edu, or just talk to me. Thank you.
All right. Then Merrill?
All right, AS100s and AS250s, watch your email tonight for information about getting PTUs issued to you if you pass the PFD. Read it very carefully and do what it says.
Cadet Martinez, you had an announcement?
Cadets, if you're looking to volunteer, there's a great opportunity this Saturday. We're going to be going to a nursing home. We're going to get there at 9 and be there until about 11:30. We're going to be helping them serve food, play bingo. It's going to be a great time. So if you're looking to volunteer, you can talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
And Cadet Matuzak?
Okay, so if you're interested in the push-up board, please see me after, because we have to do a tryout because of accountability, to where if we look bad, the whole military, the Army looks bad, then we all get chewed out and it doesn't go very well. Our tensions are high. Also, too, I have the POW MIA run set up POW MIA run sign-up sheet. So if you're interested in that, please let me know, because I will be getting more Army involvement, so the slots will start to fill up fast. If you want a good time that you want to run, please see me after. Yes.
Yeah, Richie, Alpha Flight, what is the suspense for signing up for that POW MIA run?
The suspense, I've not decided yet, but probably about a week out.
And Cadet Painter?
Yeah, so just a few things to talk about real quick for absence memos. If you know you're going to be missing an LLAB or a PT, be proactive about turning in your absence memo. Just, you know, a quick memorandum saying this is to explain my absence for LLAB or PT, and second point, you know, explain why you're absent. Get those in. Make sure this has already gone out, but make sure you get those in by close of business Friday. Just a reminder, close of business Friday of the week that you missed. So if you can get it turned in earlier, if you know for sure that you're going to be missing that LF because you have a field trip or something, then you can get that, and that's what we go off of to see, you know, if you are on a required school function or something, you know, it'll be considered maybe for excused or whatnot. But even if it's not going to be excused, if you just overslept, missed your alarm for PT, you have to turn in an absence memo by close of business Friday of that week. Now, I guess there's some confusion of how many PTs you have to attend a week. You only have to attend 2 PTs a week, and 80% of those. So I know there's some people, I guess, attending like 3 and 4. That's great, but that's not required. So don't think that that's a mandatory thing. So I think I had, you know, some confusion on that. With the barcode scanning in for PT, if you do get yours rubbed off or it's not working properly, get with your flight commander as your first contact, and then they'll send it up the chain to get your barcode replaced so that you can sign in and get scanned in. And then a message from Cadet Terry. There's the Juke Joint Jog Eskimo Joe's run September 20th. And there's still open positions for that to run. It's like around campus and stuff, a fun run. If you're still interested or if you want to take part in that, make sure and email Cadet Terry or contact her and let her know ASAP. And that's all I got.
One quick announcement about the virtual career day coming up. That's on 17 September from 1100 to 1400 in the Internet Cafe on the 2nd floor. That is for JAG, ALO, and missile career fields. So it's just an easy way to go out there, hop on the computer, and talk to some officers in real time about what they do in that career field. I guess go ahead and present those results. All right, I noticed about probably 50% of people that are supposed to have ribbons didn't have ribbons on, or didn't have the right ones on. So technically that means you're out of uniform right now, because the reg says you have to have all ribbons on the service jacket, right? Not some, not none, but all. And some people don't even have a name tag on it. So if you're supposed to have a name tag and you don't, or you're supposed to have ribbons and you have the wrong ones or none, then you're out of uniform. And why is that important? Why is it important that you're wearing the ribbons that you're supposed to? Representing our private branch and ourselves. Yeah, attention to detail, being proud to wear them, you earned them, wear them. It also kind of tells people what you did. If you've deployed to certain locations, somebody can look at your ribbon rack and go, oh, you were in Kosovo, I was in Kosovo. You got an immediate connection. So they mean something. Here, it means attention to detail and, you know, making sure your uniform's correct. Technically, you should take your jackets off right now because you're out of uniform. And I've been trying to get this set up for a year now, and this is an example of how somebody not doing their leadership position or following through with it can affect a lot more people than just one. So when you're in those leadership positions, it's not just about you, it's about how you affect everybody else. So make sure you're taking that seriously. And if things aren't getting done that you need to get done, there's a chain of command for a reason. Use it. We'll get you what you need, but we got to know you need it. Thanks. All right. Alpha Guidon Bearer and Bravo Guidon Bearer, please come front and center.
All right, so at the beginning of the year, we told you all that we're going to be putting on streamers and awards, so that way other flights can recognize the accomplishments that you've done. So 2 weeks ago, we had a GLP, and after some discussion, we have come to the conclusion that Bravo Flight was the winner of the first GLP. So present. Humps. So I'm going to present this little streamer here. Now the way this is going to work, so for everybody they can kind of understand. So Bravo Flight would have won this normal GLP streamer, but this is also to show that they have previously won it. So if you win the GLP streamer many times, you're going to get more and more of these little ones. That shows your success. And then last week, and again, with the GLPs, it's not about just completing the GLP and getting it done as fast as possible. As you go on throughout your ROTC career, you're going to learn about the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. And those flights who exhibit those specific, attributes are going to be awarded that streamer. So for last week's GLP is presented to Alpha Flight. Present hunt. Order. Hunt.